welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj, and today I'm honored to welcome Matthew Person. He's a respected executive and thought leader known for creating the Square management system and advising top companies on high trust, high performance culture. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Tool, thanks for having me. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, awesome. How do you get interested in helping leaders build strong company culture?
Well, it's a personal interest to me, but it's also one born from almost 25 years in business. After watching and witnessing the attributes that companies use and leverage to create value, and also watching ones who may not have misstepped along the way, and unfortunately, the end result was a bad culture. And what I saw happening over time was a default position where a lot of companies common-sized culture, and by that I mean they took the attributes often summarized in a best place to work award and tried to copy it. And that really doesn't work. You need to make your organizational structure your own. You need to develop your own thinking around organizational structure to get to the culture that you as an executive want, or as an individual know about the culture in which you actually work best in. And I thought that there could be a better way for both parties to understand this. And so I wanted to work to put that together in something that was actionable as opposed to just more philosophical.
Okay, so that means every company will going to have a different kind of culture.
Every company should have a different type of culture. They shouldn't be the same. And the reason for that is the working preferences of people are different. Every single person has a unique way of doing. And I think over time, companies have defaulted to a one-sided perspective of culture, which is the company's view is the correct view. And it's on the employee to chameleon themselves to fit if they want to stay in that job. It doesn't necessarily mean, though, that the corporate culture is good. It is high performing. It is creating development opportunities. It is producing revenue and margin. What needs to happen is a two-way story, one which takes into consideration the preferences of the employees. Now, of course, you're going to say, there's companies with 4 employees, 400, 4,000, 40,000. There's too many unique partialities to affect a common culture. That's why we've defaulted to this one-size-fits-all we culture. And I say, no, that's actually not true. You can actually define it. And the way I think about it is a unique system, the Square management system, which has coined a unique term called constrained independence. Okay? And if you step back and think about an employee's experience at a company, they theoretically, without constraint, can do anything. Their universe of opportunity to action independent ideas is limitless until the company steps in and puts guardrails in place to ensure a minimum standard of service and quality or behavioral performance to, again, constrain that independence. Some companies have a really tight or heavy level of constraint. Think of it as a square that puts you in a small box. Some people love that because they don't really want to have a lot of autonomy. They like to be an executor. They want to know what decisions they can make, and they off they go. And some companies are really highly regulated, biopharma, manufacturing, where service standards are required. You really can't actually have a lot of autonomy because you need to deliver at a certain degree of specification. Other people want a wide or a light level of constraint. They need the freedom to breathe, to action, to create, to innovate, to do what they want. If you were to put that person in a very heavy constrained environment, they would suffer. But not all companies want to provide that level of autonomy. So the system that I put together creates the 4 sides of the box that allows C-suite executives or CEO or startup founders, however you want to use this, to understand the elements that make up constraint and to actually then know the degree of constraint that they want to impose on their employees. And I can dig into this in a little bit, but that's effectively how you then get alignment with your employees, because some people are going to fit in the box and they'll thrive, and some people won't fit in the box and they will leave, and that outcome is okay.
Can you give an example of when your Square management system helped a company?
Sure. Let me step back first before I answer that about how it works. Let's understand the 4 sides. What are they? How does this all come together? Why do you need 4 sides of the box? The first side is identity. That's who you are as a company. This is how your organization defines itself. It's your mission, your values, your beliefs. They all align to produce one key question that executives should think about. Do our people know what we stand for and why? The second side of the box is instruction. This is the clarity and consistency of expectation. It's how you onboard. It's training. It's knowledge transfer. It's standards of procedure. The key question here, are roles and expectations and processes clear and scalable? Key part. Third part is intercommunication. That is how we interact. It is the nature of meeting cadence. It's the use of communication tools. It's tone. This is what most people think culture is. It's the ping pong table in the office. It's open space versus closed offices. Whether or not you have beers on Thursdays with the company or whether a lot of people are interacting outside of the office place. The key question here is information flowing in a way that drives clarity and trust. And last is information feedback. And that is how we improve because it's how performance is measured, shared, and used to evolve. It's feedback loops and performance reviews, not just for the employees, but for the company itself. People often forget the company's got to judge itself and how it's doing. The key question here, are we learning and adapting fast enough to stay competitive? There's 10 elements in each side. You can then walk through them. And in the book that I'm working to publish called The Culture of Alignment, you can actually understand for each 40 element, which one, how you would apply that in a light constraint scenario, and a moderate and a heavy constraint scenario, so that as a reader, you can digest it and understand how to apply it in your own business. Actually use this instead of just reading about a philosophical exercise. So that's really the importance here. This is intentionally constructed to your view of how the processes and systems should be evolved.
Okay, so what's a common mistake leaders make with company's culture?
Common mistake, there are a few. One, they don't even have a complete square. You have to have a complete square. You have to get all of these elements in place in your company. Most companies don't, and they have an open square, which means they have some elements of their operation that are undefined or unknown or unadhered to. And that's when chaos ensues, because if there is a gap, you're then forcing employees to come up with their own side to the square. And the employees will then figure out together how that process or that procedure will actually fall into place.
Okay, okay. When you said gap, can you talk about that?
Sure. So let's say, for example, the company really didn't have a strong onboarding program. As a result, the ways of doing the actual performance standards, the procedures, is left to frontline hiring managers, maybe the lead in a department, and they will enact their own view of those service and performance levels, because there isn't an actual system in place to instruct how things should be done, when they should be done by, to the level, what does good look like, what does success look like in terms of delivery or performance. And you're going to get, as a result, varying degrees of opinion around what output looks like at the company. And so some companies, some divisions might be very strong in terms of their delivery, and others might be low. And the company that is considered low in its delivery output may not know that it's actually low because no one's told them that that's the case. And so you're going to have a varied amount of inputs. Your performance quality will vary. The customer experience is going to be different. Employees in those different divisions will say, wait a second, we're doing all this work to meet this performance level. We were instructed to be here. And the other person's going to say, I was never even told I had to do that. And that will create confusion in the company. It may even create jealousy if someone actually has to work harder than somebody else to get the same level of pay. That's a problem. So that's why you need to have alignment across a business. You need to have all four sides, because if you don't actually define something, it can lead to confusion both for the staff, but also for the customers.
So, what do you think so many leaders get alignment wrong?
Well, they get alignment wrong because they either don't understand the elements required to affect the proper governance and systems and operating procedures. If you step back and think about how most people end up in the CEO, oftentimes it's either you're the CRO, you're the chief sales guy, right? Or you're the chief operating officer. If you're the chief sales guy, you're usually more on the front line in customer experience, but you probably haven't picked up most of what I would consider a regular profit and loss statement. You haven't picked up the application of G&A. You don't understand how all the other pieces of the company work together. You're just getting out there, talking to customers, getting sales contracts, and you're moving. If you're more on the operations side, you're missing the other half of the business. You're really doing more of the procedure stuff, but you don't understand brand and vision, go-to-market functionality as well. And so you end up with people oftentimes in leadership roles who know their specific function well, especially if you're part of an executive group that's comprised of finance and tax or HR, and they know their function, but they've never had to think about how their function applies across the business to help it scale. And so when all of a sudden they're now responsible for affecting management over a large company, a lot of people, and they haven't really stepped outside their function. This book will help people understand how it all connects outside cross-functionally, and I think that's the key miss for a lot of executives.
Okay, so about your book, that you're working on right now. So, when will it be published?
Well, we're working on publication right now, trying to promote and drive advanced interest to help with the publication process. If you go to townsquare-advisors.com, you can actually learn more about the Square Management System and reserve a copy of the book called Culture of Alignment, get an advanced reservation in, but you can also take a free quiz. If you're an individual and you want to learn more about your preferred working environment and the characteristics that'll help you thrive, take the free quiz. It's only 10 questions. If you're an executive and you're like, hey, just you want to learn a little bit more about maybe how I think our company should be structured, there's the equivalent corporate self-assessment quiz you can take for free. It's also 10 questions. If you really are interested in learning more about all 40 elements, how they connect, and you want to take the 40-point survey, you can also go online and do that at townsquare-advisors.com. That's going to give you the granularity behind the system where you can actually see the pieces moving in general and learn more about the elements that comprise the 40 operating procedures and systems that you would need to implement. And you can actually take the test and figure out where you stand. Are you heavily constrained, moderately constrained, slightly constrained? Most people who take this test say, hey, that sounds close, but I was surprised about a couple of things. They actually learn something about themselves in the process.
Okay, so according to your experience, what is the worst thing you have seen that happened because of bad culture?
There's so many stories in my book around bad culture that I use throughout the book to actually highlight how this goes awry. They're all framed around true moments in time that I've either witnessed or heard about from friends. I'll give you a couple different examples. There was one company I was familiar with that was in a colder part of the country, and in the winter, to save money because heating expenses were so high, the CEO would tell the operations team to turn on the heat in the morning. And that way the staff could hear the heat flow through the air ducts. They could smell the heat coming in and they would feel it and they would feel warm. But around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, when everyone came back from lunch, he instructed the operations team to turn off the heat so that they would save money in the afternoon. And by the evening, when everyone started leaving to go home, it was freezing in the office and people had jackets on and hats. It was just a tough environment to be happy and productive in because it was so cold. So this environment that asked people to work in this type of conditions really made an impact on the happiness of the people there. That component, that office environment, is part of intercommunication, how you work, who you report to. Another example that I can give you is one time this is something I witnessed. I was in cubicle heaven and a junior employee had gotten in trouble and the CEO had come down and said, I don't pay you to think, I pay you to work. And that's a very clear example of heavy constraint. In essence, this person didn't have freedom to ideate in action, anything. They were only there to execute someone else's ideas. That is a heavy level of constraint and a very clear example of an environment where that person needs to make a decision about whether or not they fit. Some people love just being told what to do and that's all they care about. Other people need that innovation freedom. And so that's an example where I can't believe that was actually said to somebody, but at the same time, that CEO thought that course of action was appropriate for their business.
Is there anything else that you would like to say?
Well, I think the key thing on this is the entire system is designed to be a few things. It's designed to be intentional in the sense that every executive reading this should intentionally construct their business to fit the culture that they prefer. And we miss that. Again, we're going to the common size best place to work. Hey, company X won the best place to work award. We should copy what they do. No, intentionally design it the way you want it to. 2, have the constitution to stick to it. A lot of people go awry when they don't actually adhere to the systems they have in place. They make exceptions. This is common with high-performing salespeople who misbehave and they say, well, we don't want to get rid of Lisa. She's the best salesperson we have. Yeah, but she's doing X, Y, and Z, and she's a cancer in the office, and she's causing all kinds of problems. And they don't want to lose her for fear of loss of those relationships. It is worse for the business to keep Lisa than to let her go. So have the constitution to keep to the standards you believe in. And then lastly, continuously monitor how you're doing. This is designed to be actionable. Most business books are aggregate forms of, hey, we studied 1,000 companies and we talked to 500 employees, and these are the key characteristics. These are the 5 things that you should do. Those things are great to understand, but they don't necessarily apply to you. That's about that business or those businesses, not your business. This is actionable for your business. You can take this test and immediately know where you have to implement. Imagine this. You give this survey to the executive team, the senior team, the management team, and the front line. Then you aggregate the scores. You will immediately know based on the score that comes out for each side, for each eye in the square score, the differences. And so you can quickly figure out as a diagnostic tool where variances in service and performance levels exist or differences in philosophical approaches exist. You may have, for example, a company that doesn't actually like the communication systems that are in place. The senior team may think it's great, but the front line doesn't feel like they're being heard or has the correct information. This system will allow you to draw that out. So it's an actionable tool that can be leveraged to intentionally design for your company and nobody else's. And that's the key point. This is your company, your employees. Do it intentionally for you.
Okay, so who are your ideal clients?
Excuse me?
Oh, who are your ideal clients?
Right now, we're promoting the thought leadership around the book and getting the word out related to that. So the promotional efforts are really around the methodology itself and wanting to make sure we stick around the book and the thought leadership. If you go on townsquare-advisors.com, you can learn more about other things that we offer.
Among all the companies, okay, which kind of companies do you like to work the best?
Sorry, I misheard you. So this is designed for the middle market. And the reason for that is it's an actionable tool that isn't expensive to implement. I want it to be a pocket guide that executives are reading on the train home or sitting reading over a cup of coffee on the weekend, and they're writing notes in the book and they're taking it to the office the next day and they're saying, hey, we need to do this. What I don't want it to be is something that has cost of consulting around it, things like that. This is, to me, how businesses should operate a company, how executives should operate a company. For an individual person, you need to know this about yourself too. You should take the test to figure out where you work. Too many people are unhappy in their jobs because they have foregone who they are for sake of a job. And it's not healthy. Learn who you are, learn the characteristics, understand what makes you thrive and what makes you a better person. So when you walk into your next job, you can ask the hiring manager about these things to determine if you're a fit. And then you don't have to be anyone but you. And when you're you, you're a better employee. This whole entire system, again, that square allows the employee to bounce around the square and make actions and do things inside that square. When you're able to be you and just act and not have to constrain yourself beyond what you naturally like to be, you're a happier employee. But you're also a faster employee because you know the decisions you can make and the decisions you can't make. And you trust the other employees around you to also be in the same box so you know and trust the decisions they make. That way you don't have to ask questions all the time. So you can actually move faster as an employee. You're now part of the solution, not part of the problem. You know the influence you're having on the organization. You trust the people around you. That makes you happier, which makes you a more loyal employee, which makes you a faster and higher performing employee, yielding more growth, more margin, more efficacy for a company. That's why people and executives both need to institute this way of doing.
Awesome. This is Atul from Genius Talk Podcast with Matthew. Thank you all for watching and listening, and we will see you on the next time.
Thanks, Atul. Really a pleasure. Thank you.